All right, guys, welcome. Today, our talk is to address a timely topic with the spring season coming. So we have spring sports now. We have a lot of outdoor activities picking up. So we're going to talk about electrolytes, included in a hydration conversation. And we're also going to bring in glucose need or fueling needs depending upon the type of exercise. So we've got a couple different products here that we use in here. And we want to talk about some of those and when they're appropriate to take and when it might be a little overkill depending on the type of activity that we're doing. We're also going to talk about our history and with sports and hydration and our current needs for some activities that we both have coming up. So I'm Coach Ryan. I'm here with Coach Liz from Peak, and we're going to dive into this.
All right.
So when you were growing up, you played lacrosse, right? And we played high school collegiate lacrosse. I know my hydration information back then was not very accurate to what we do now. What was your go-to back then? What did you use?
Yeah, mine was water and Gatorade, maybe Powerade. I chose Gatorade just because I liked the flavors better.
Yeah.
And I would sometimes cut them with water because it became too sweet.
Yeah.
But now what I know, everything that I know now is
We missed the boat.
Gatorade is not ideal.
Yeah.
Too much sugar.
You got it.
And so my thinking and concepts around hydrating properly with electrolytes, replenishing, has come to these.
Got it.
Ditch the Gatorade.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you've got an event coming up now that's a totally different direction than playing lacrosse, right?
Yeah.
So we've got High Rocks, and that's coming up in June. So it's a hot time of the year, and it's a pretty intense and longer duration exercise mode. Do you mind describing what the race is about so our viewers can understand what we're getting into here?
Yeah, so High Rocks is half cardio, half strength based. Got a kilometer run, consists 8 times over the course of, I think average is an hour and a half to 2 hours. And in between the runs, it's a functional strength exercise.
Yeah, that are not easy.
Pretty demanding, pretty demanding. So
this is your first time doing it?
First time.
So you're building up your running program now, getting ready for that. You're getting after pretty intense strength sessions that are in here. Some cross training, right? You're probably training 6 days a week, is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
so we've got a big
5 to
demand
6.
on the body. And depending on those different types of workouts, we have different needs with our hydration. I want to dive into the whys, why we use certain tools. I want to dive into the what is the tool, and then the how much. And all three of those things should help us with our decision making when we pick products and figure out timing, right? So let's start with a couple different scenarios. Let's go back to lacrosse.
Yeah.
So we're in lacrosse season now. I have young kids, they're out there on the field. This week was our first week that we got hit with some hot temperatures and some humidity, and none of us are acclimatized. So in this first week, we feel the symptoms a little more than we're going to in a couple weeks. So hydration is even that much more important.
Right.
So when we talk about, let's say, youth sports that are field sports, I don't want to get too detailed, but positions matter on the field as well. But let's just take lacrosse, and it doesn't matter whether it's boys or girls. Let's say that we're playing half the game, right? And we get some substitutions. That is a demanding sport where we're on and then we're off, right? So we have intermittent bouts of intensity, and we're out in hot weather, so we are going to sweat, right? So we're going to lose fluid. So we know that number one, in every exercise setting, we need to replace the fluid that we lose. And we want to replace that in a manner where we're not over-consuming, right? And then we get a bellyache while we're playing, but we're drinking somewhere in the like 4 to 6 ounces every 15 minutes, right? So we can time that with our substitutions. So we need that water replacement. So we bring our bottle of water, we've got our 20 ounces, and we're good to go for the game. Now, the next step is, do we need anything in our water, right? So 2 options that we can have. One would be electrolytes. So think sodium, magnesium, potassium. Sodium, arguably the most important one to replenish that we lose through sweat. And the other piece of that would be sugar, glucose, right? Fructose could be a couple different kinds. They can be hidden in the product as well. So you mentioned Gatorade, right, when you were growing up. So Gatorade has a good amount of carbohydrate in it as a replenishment for that. Also has electrolytes in it. But now we talk about the when and the why, right? So if we're doing something that's under an hour of activity and there's a low to moderate sweat rate, if we took in foods prior to our activity that were high in our electrolytes, so we had a meal 1 to 2 hours prior that was high in salt, we don't necessarily even need electrolytes for that. Right? Now, if we're playing most of that hour, right, you're playing midfield, you're short on players, don't have a lot of subs, or it's really hot, or you're that person that sweats a lot more than the next person next to you on the team, then it's a great idea to replace your electrolytes.
Right.
Our glucose is another story. We'll come back to that in a second, okay? So when we talk electrolytes and replacement, we can do that in a couple different forms, right? So you were just drinking one of these,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So this is a Nuun, and they come in tablets, so they're easy to use on the fly, right? You can throw them in your car or your bag.
Yeah.
Yep, so you throw 1 tablet in a bottle of between 16 and 20 ounces of water, and that's the recommendation for hydration in normal cases. 16 ounces on kind of the low end. As the activity level goes up, your sweat rate goes up, or heat goes up, then we might need to get up to 20 ounces or maybe even 24. In most cases, especially for kids, 16 to 20 ounces is fine. So a Nuun has about 300 milligrams of sodium in it, which would be kind of middle of the road with replacing needs. 500 being kind of the high end. So this is going to do a lot of good for a lot of people that are exercising in hot weather for about 45 minutes to an hour. All right, so that's one option. Another option is something that we use in here called Lmnt. So love this brand. So this is no sugar in this, no glucose. This is purely just electrolyte replacement. And these packets are 1 gram, 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So these are potent. What you would do is split this in half for, again, the same ratio, like 16 to 20 ounces of water. And that's going to give you really good replenishment for your electrolytes. So I would use this in intense exercise that lasts 45 minutes or more. Hot, out in the elements, right? We're playing our tournament games on the weekend, or we've got a longer practice. That would be great to split one of these packets and throw it in there. We could use it in the gym, but if you're just doing like a climate-controlled workout, weight training session, you're not going to sweat that much to actually need this. So something like a Nuun might be a little better. All right, let's highlight a third product, and then we'll start bringing in the carbohydrate. So this is a Thorne product, and you guys all know that we love Thorne in here. It's called Catalyte. So this is a powder. So you just throw a scoop of this powder in your drink. Cost effective because you get 30 servings in this thing. Right. So I really like it for that reason. But not as easy to use kind of on the fly. That's where the Nuun tablets or the packets can come in handy. But anyway, this is about 485 milligrams of sodium. You also have B vitamins in this. There's no glucose replenishment in this, and it's sweetened with stevia, right? So there's not a lot of garbage in here that we're not proud of. So love the Thorne product. The Nuun, and Lmnt are kind of our big 3 favorites, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they all have more of an electrolyte concentration than a Gatorade, Powerade vitamin water, which we see a lot of the kids drinking just because they taste good.
Yeah, I would say the Lmnt has got a little more salty taste.
It does.
In various flavors.
Yep.
But if you're not used to drinking saltiness, little bit of an element of surprise, but you get used to it.
I see what you did there. Yep. They have a bunch of different flavors too. So they have things like chocolate mint, which is interesting. There's a chocolate salt. There's citrus flavors, right? I like the lemon lime when I'm kind of exercising hard. So anyway, that's a good brand.
Watermelon.
Yep, yeah, we love that one. So let's talk about another situation. So let's go back to High Rocks, right? So we talked about the game situation. So don't necessarily need the glucose during our short lacrosse game where we're only playing half of it, even if it is hot out. Electrolytes matter more, and we need that with our water intake. For High Rocks, you said 1.5 hours to 2 hours, right? The world champion High Rocks finisher is going to maybe break an hour, right? We're not all in that boat. So we're going to go anywhere between that hour if we're having a great day to 2 hours. So that changes the game a little bit because our sweat rate is high due to the strength and cardio back and forth, right? Our heart rate is sustainably high, right? So we're pumping out high effort, anaerobic with the strength, back to aerobic with the run, so you never really get a break.
Right.
So fluid needs are critical, but in a High Rocks event, just like playing a game, right, playing a sport, you don't necessarily get a ton of breaks.
Right.
So when you're there, and this is good for you to know if you don't know this yet, they have a water station,
Good to know.
but that's about it. So you can stop by and grab water, but anytime you stop, the clock's ticking, right? So you don't have access to a water bottle that you bring with you. You're not going to put a Camelback on. So if we only have water, then what do we use for our electrolyte supplementation? We don't have time to like mix something. So it has to be something that's quick and on the go. So, and it has to be able to, you know, fit in your short pocket or something, okay? So with a Hyrox event, we also have a huge calorie expenditure, right? If we're hammering it for an hour and a half or more, you know, per hour, you're gonna be anywhere from, depending on, you know, lean body mass and all that and work rate, 500 calories an hour to could be 1,000 calories an hour.
Right.
So if you're out there that long or more, we've got to
Expending.
replenish those too.
Yeah.
So we need glucose. So we're operating at a high heart rate, right? We need sugar. This is the time when our body needs it if we want to perform well. So a couple products that we like here, Untapped, they make some pretty cool stuff. So this is a little tube of basically maple syrup. So if we want to have some less processed stuff, right, we've got one ingredient, pure organic Vermont maple syrup, right? So this is our Untapped glucose, quick, easy replenishment. This could go right in the side of your tights pocket or something like that. That does not have an electrolyte replacement, right? So that's great if you have access to a water bottle and you need electrolytes. Maybe you have your Nuun in your water bottle and you do that combo, right? That's about 22 grams of carbohydrate. All right, another good glucose replenishment. I'm a big fan of this brand. I've been using this a lot lately for a bike race. I think I pronounced it right, Maurten. So these guys are make a product that's just very easy to digest and absorb. It doesn't taste super sweet. So a lot of times when we need to replenish a lot, we get sick of the sweet stuff, right? Or it's too hot, it's like sickening.
Doesn't mix well.
Yeah, this is a really good change in flavor. So love their stuff, but that's also pretty low in electrolytes, so I wouldn't even count that. So that's going to need to be taken with some sort of other electrolyte supplement.
Got it.
So now we can get into something like an Untapped liquid drink mix. So these are little tubes as well, but you would drain these into a water bottle, and these have a combination. So 21 grams of carbohydrate in this, but this one also has 225 milligrams of sodium. So that's one that we could do. Yeah, it's a nice combo.
Together.
So it makes things pretty easy. But again, we need a water bottle, right? So what do we do on the fly? So if we're on the fly in a Hyrox event or something like that, we're gonna need, here's a version of it. So we have the Untapped maple syrup that we just discussed, right? Just glucose. This is another maple syrup. It's got a little more in the electrolyte department, right? Not a ton. We've got 60 milligrams of sodium. So it gives you something, but if you need more than that, which at that kind of sweat rate and that kind of intensity you're probably going to, you're gonna want some sort of a gel that has a ton of electrolytes in it, right? And we don't have any here, but like a Cliff gel, they make good ones, right, that have a ton of electrolytes in them.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing to do on the fly. Cool?
Yeah.
Let's go deeper. So let's say that we're doing something that's longer and we have multiple hours, right? Let's say you're doing a training run lift combo, right? So you're going to do a simulation in a week or two where we're going to kind of mimic Hyrox here and have a bunch of other teammates that are in here. So let's say that you do a warm up, right? You do some mobility work, you got the doors open, it's hot in here, you're sweating, you do your workout, you do your cool down. I mean, this thing might be 2.5 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we have access to a water bottle, right, and we can control our variables, now we can get a little more creative. So that's where we need to replace all three. So we always start with the fluid, right? We need our probably 20 ounces per hour because it's high work rate. We need our carbohydrate replacement, and we need our electrolytes, right? And if an event is shorter than an hour, you can get away with it without any kind of supplementation.
Right.
Like you can go race a 10K, right? And as long as you're not crawling, right? You're moving pretty fast and that's over in under an hour, then you don't really need anything, right? If you pre-ate, pre-hydrated, you're fine.
Yeah, prehydration is also key.
Totally, yep.
Come in just starting with your 20 ounces.
Correct, yeah, you're never gonna catch up, right?
Right.
But if we're out there for 2 hours, or like this weekend, I've got something that we're doing where we're gonna do a 24-hour race.
Yeah.
So the nutrition in the first hour doesn't necessarily help the first hour. It saves you in the second hour.
Exactly.
It's getting ahead.
Right.
So we wanna make sure we do that back to our youth athletes with our tournaments, right? So when you're training your high school girls out here, and you hear the schedule that they have with their club tournaments. I mean, what are they doing?
They've got, on the weekends, they've got 3 or 4 games over the course of 2 days.
It's a beat
back
down.
to back, yeah.
Beat down, and they might have an hour break in between.
Right.
Right? So during that time, we need to replenish both glucose and electrolytes. So that's when it's time to like get an Lmnt in a water bottle or some Catalyte, and then either have a little bit of solid food that you can quickly digest, like a Cliff Bar or a Larabar, right? So we get our glucose from that, and we get our electrolytes from one of these.
Right.
Or we need the combination, right? And that's where we could put one of these kind of drink mixes in there. But those are all critical. So remember, our hydration is about staying ahead of how we're going to feel in the second hour. So if you have a second game or a 2-3 hour practice in the heat or a long event like you do, we've got to be proactive and get ahead of it, right? Anything we want to talk about with pre-event hydration, how we want to attack that. What do? Do you have a breakfast combo with hydration that you go to?
Let's see. I do, in the mornings, I'll do a green drink.
Okay.
It's just get my dose of greens in the morning.
Love it.
Combo with hydration. And then fuel, I'll either do a protein carb source or a protein fat source.
Okay. Depending on the type of workout?
Correct, yeah.
Nice.
I know after a strength workout this morning, I did protein and carbs.
Yeah, for replenishment after.
Correct.
Perfect. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, it just depends on the workout at hand that I've got on my calendar for the day, and I'll definitely focus on protein because that will.
Yeah, for recovery.
For recovery. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So flipping the script and looking at what we do prior.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times we see the halftime, Gatorades, or when I grew up, it was the orange slices, right?
Slices,
I think everybody did that playing youth soccer. But what we'll wind up doing is giving, our youth athletes unintentionally as parents a meal, like they have a breakfast, right? That might be packed with sodium, because let's face it, a lot of times we're on the go, we need to get out of the house quick. So it's something that's processed in a wrapper.
Sugar.
Totally. So it has a ton of sugar in it, right? We've already got our 30 grams of sugar for the morning, and maybe we've got 300 milligrams of sodium already in that processed snack. Then what do we do out the door? We hand them a Gatorade bottle, right? This kid hasn't moved off the sofa yet.
Right.
Then we go play a game, and maybe they're just learning their sport, and they're kind of like my kids wandering around the field trying to figure out how to play at a high level, learning, right? Or they're a little older and they're in it and they're playing hard, but they have substitutions. We've already hit them with glucose. We've already hit them with electrolytes unintentionally. And now we're throwing something in there that's super sweet, doesn't have enough electrolytes to really balance, but it has some in there. We're not taking that all into account. And we're kind of mistiming our volume and our concentration of what we have. So the thing to know is, prior to going out to your practice or prior to going out to your field, if you're going to eat a meal, right, or a snack, a pre-workout snack, we need to know if it's carbohydrate based, which it should be, and we need to know if it has electrolytes in it. So look at your labels, look at your wrapper on whatever you're having, and just check out your sodium and magnesium content on that. All right, again, we want our sodium somewhere in the 150 on the lowest end to heavy sweat, heavy effort, longer day, could be upwards of 500 milligrams in that.
Yeah.
If you do that in 90 minutes to 2 hours prior, and it's only a 45-minute to an hour game, you don't need to really supplement. You already did it.
Right.
Just have your water. Yeah, you're fine. We definitely don't need the Gatorade if it's 45 minutes, if we've already had our carbohydrate preload meal, right? We're really just kind of giving ourselves too much glucose to deal with at that point. It's not helping performance. Now, if you're out there second hour, then we can make that argument that we need some glucose and glycogen replenishment, okay? The other thing I want to mention before we get too deep in the weeds here, if we mistime our meal prior and or our Gatorade, we can set ourselves up for a decrease in performance based on that timing. So if we're going to have a meal or a snack again or a bar, and it's going to be 30 to 45 grams of carbohydrate, and we have that at about 30 minutes prior to our actual event, our blood sugar has gone up in the 30 minutes. We have secreted insulin to pull blood sugar out of the blood, and we are on the way down. So we actually hit the start of our game at our low blood sugar moment, which doesn't feel so good. So we're mistiming that and setting ourselves up for failure. We'd be better off if we ate nothing, right? Or waited until the game. So if we're gonna have that pre-workout snack or meal, have that 90 minutes to 2 hours prior, and then you can always start sipping on your glycogen source or glucose source with your electrolytes as you're starting your game or practice, and then sip on that throughout, okay? Just wanted to make sure we get that point.
Absolutely.
I know that's diving into food, but I see that all the time. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. Cool. Anything else you want to talk about today? I think we kind of summed it up, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So guys, remember our brands here that we endorse here at Peak. Maurten, we like Lmnt,
Thorne.
Nuun's, Thorne Catalyte, right? And Untapped, right? Untapped has a couple different things here.
Yeah.
We rep Untapped and Thorne here, and we can tell you where to get Lmnt and Maurten and Nuun. All right? Thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.